Hi everyone. So today I'm going to present Ireland's food waste statistics for 2020. So why do we need to measure food waste? Well, food waste is a global problem that has environmental, social and economic consequences. Over 1/4 of all food produced globally is wasted, and it's estimated that 8 to 10% of greenhouse gas emissions are caused by food waste. So there's more to food waste than wasted food. There's also the land, energy and water that goes into the growing, processing and transporting of food. So now I'm going to talk a wee bit about food waste definitions. So the first question is, what is food? Well, the European Commission describes food as any means any substance or product, whether processed, partially processed or unprocessed, intended to be or reasonably expected to be ingested by humans. So it's the food we all eat every day, but it doesn't include pet food or animal feed. So the next question is, what is food waste? Well, it depends who you ask, but again, the European Commission describes food waste as any food that becomes waste under the following conditions. So it has to have entered the food supply chain, then i.e. post-harvesting. If it's a pre-harvesting waste, it's called a food loss. Then it has to be removed from the food supply chain and it has to be processed as a waste. And food waste also includes edible food and inedible food. So if you take corn on the cob, for instance, it includes the sweet corn kernels, but also the cob that's left at the end. But food waste does not include the following. So it doesn't include some animal tissue. It doesn't include things like brewing byproducts or other foods that are processed into byproducts, such as pet food, feed, or fertilizer. It doesn't include animal tissue waste that's considered to pose a specified risk, such as brain and spinal fluid. And it doesn't include unsold and damaged goods from the manufacturing and retail sectors that is redistributed to feed people. So now I'll discuss food waste policy targets and legislation. So the Irish government has committed to reduce food waste by 50% by 2030, which is in line with the UN SDG goals and EU policies. And the European Commission will propose targets to reduce food waste by the end of 2023. And these targets will be set against an agreed baseline year, but that has yet to be confirmed. And finally, the government will be rolling out a national food waste prevention roadmap later this year. So 2020 is the first year of annual food waste reporting for member states. And it's under the Waste Framework Directive that this comes. And under that directive, we were required to report the amount of food waste generated in 2020 in June of this year. And the aim of this annual reporting is to provide policymakers with the means to monitor food waste and also to support food waste prevention initiatives. So I'm now going to talk about the measurement methodology we use. So how do we measure food waste? So firstly, we measure food waste along the entire food supply chain from production to consumption. So it starts at primary production, so that's farming, fisheries, agriculture. Then it goes on to the manufacturing and processing of food and beverages. It goes then to retail and distribution of food, and finally consumption of food at restaurants, food services and households. And the specific measurement methodology is outlined in the Delegated Decision 1597. And this methodology, it included several ways to do it, and member states could choose which way they wanted to do it. So, for instance, it included direct measurement, so that would be, say, the direct measurement of food or waste coming from households. Waste composition analysis, so that would be something like our National Municipal Waste Characterisation Project, which looks at the types of waste and proportions of waste in our curbside bins. And then, say, food waste coefficient. So that's basically how much food waste is in a particular waste stream. And the measurement methodology also included economic sectors and the list of waste codes that typically include food waste. So now I'll discuss Ireland's food waste measurement methods. So for primary production, we undertook a research project. So a research project was undertaken by researchers from UCD and Tralee IT. And the aim of this project was to understand the nature and extent of food loss and food waste from primary production in Ireland in 2020. And it was the first project of its kind and was considered a starting point to understand food waste. Now, the method included a review of existing published data and then also questionnaires with stakeholder representatives, so public bodies and producer cooperatives, so that would be the likes of Teagasc, the IFA, BIM, the Seafood Development Board, Inland Fisheries, and then also the individual producers. So for the other stages along the food supply chain, we used a combination of methods. So we firstly took direct measurement of total waste. So that would have, say, from manufacturing and processing, we got the annual data from the EPA licensed manufacturing and processing facilities. Then for the commercial sector and households, we got the amount of waste collected from the national waste collectors through the NWCPO. Then we also got data from surveys, so we got data from the CSO regarding environmental behaviours, so like the percentage of people that do home composting. And CTC, the Clean Technology Centre, undertook a project to survey waste collectors to get an understanding of the proportion of commercial waste that they're getting from restaurants, food services versus retail and distribution. Then we also took the results of the 2018 municipal waste characterisation, which told us how much food waste is in the commercial and household tree bin collection. And finally, we used food waste coefficients for some other waste streams. So now I'm going to talk about Ireland's food waste statistics. So the EPA estimates that in 2020, Ireland generated 770,000 tonnes of food waste. So the largest sector was households, which accounted for 32%, followed by the manufacturing and processing sector, which was 28%. Then there was food services at 23%. And then primary production and retail and distribution both accounted for less than 10%. So I'll now talk a little bit about each sector in more detail. So for primary production, that sector generated 70,000 tonnes of food waste, and vegetable production was the main source of waste food in this sector. And that was generally found to be from market conditions, so items were considered unsaleable due to quality issues or due to low customer demand at specific times during the year. Then the next sector, manufacturing and processing. So that sector accounted for 215,000 tonnes, and the food waste in this sector was generally from animal tissues that, say, these were ones that could have gone to be used for byproducts, but they ended up being treated as waste instead. Then there's the foods that are unsuitable for consumption or processing, such as unsafe final products or products that get returned. And then process waste, so sludges and debris that arise during the cleaning process or trims from the floor. And one, I suppose, interesting note about this sector, that the types of waste that arise from the sector year to year can vary due to external factors. So we found that in 2020, because of the closure of the pubs during the COVID-19 pandemic, it resulted in unsold beer being returned to the breweries. The next sector is food retail and distribution. So 61,000 tonnes of food waste was generated from this sector in 2020. And a research project done by CTC in 2019 found that, called the Reducing Commercial Food Waste in Ireland project, found that fruit, vegetables and bread made up more than half of the food waste in this sector. Then on to restaurants and food services. So we estimate that 178,000 tonnes of food waste was generated in this sector. And the research project on reducing commercial food waste found that hotels generate the highest rate of food waste in this sector, and with plate waste accounting for 38%, followed by preparation waste, which accounted for 34%, and unserved food then accounted for 26%. And this project also found that the types of food waste were quite similar in that vegetables and bread accounted for over 20% of the food waste in this sector, and also that 2/3 of the food waste in this sector is potentially avoidable. And finally, this report estimated that the annual cost of food waste to the sector is in excess of 300 million euros. So finally, to household food waste. So we estimate that 240,000 tonnes of food waste was thrown away by Irish households in 2020. This equates to about 130 kilos of food waste, or 48 kilos per person, and that's about half the weight of a full brown bin. So that amount of food waste costs the average Irish household about 60 euros a month, or 70 euros per year. And given the current cost of groceries, like that is a lot of money to be putting in the bin. The brown bin rollout has been successful in that now 64% of Irish households that have a bin service have a brown bin. So which means that this waste is going to anaerobic digestion and composting as part of the circular economy. But still, too much household waste is going in the mixed waste bin, so into our black bins. And so it's not treated by composting or anaerobic digestion, and it's going for disposal or incineration. So the challenge we are facing is to reduce Ireland's food waste by 50% by 2030. And as you can see from the food waste hierarchy, prevention is the best way to avoid food waste. Redistribution is also another really important way to avoid food waste and to help support charities that feed people. So in 2020, Food Cloud redistributed over 3,000 tonnes of food, surplus food, and helped over 180,000 individuals and 825 charities. However, even if all the avoidable food waste is eliminated entirely, there will still be the need to manage unavoidable food waste, such as peels, bones, and animal tissue. So it's really important that this food waste that arises is segregated, separately collected, and treated in the most resource-efficient way possible, so by composting or anaerobic digestion. And the EPA Circular Economy Programme aims to raise awareness of food waste and target behaviour change through a number of activities. So firstly, there's the Food Waste Charter, which is a public commitment by businesses to address food waste. This year, we're going to be rolling out the Food Waste Measurement Protocol to food and beverage manufacturers to identify and measure food waste consistently and put in place actions to reduce food waste. There's also the Food Service Pathway, which is a 4-step pathway for the hospitality sector to measure food waste consistently, track performance, and reduce food waste. And finally, we have our Stop Food Waste campaign, which is a national campaign to reduce household food waste. So, in conclusion, Ireland now has official food waste statistics along the food supply chain for the first time. And in 2023, Ireland will propose to reduce food waste, or the European Commission will propose food waste reduction targets against an agreed baseline year, and the Irish government has committed to reduce food waste by 50% by 2030. So the next steps for the EPA are to continue to improve our food waste data. So in 2023, we're planning to publish the new National Municipal Waste Characterisation, so we'll have better or more up-to-date information on the amount of food waste in our curbside bins. We're also going to be repeating the Commercial Municipal Waste Sectors project, so we'll have a better understanding of the proportion of commercial waste that's coming from different economic sectors. We're also going to be reviewing the measurement methods that other member states use to see if we could learn from best practice exhibited in another country. We're going to be analysing our data further to help inform food waste prevention initiatives. And we'll be continuing our food waste prevention activities, so continuing Stop Food Waste and the measurement protocols. And then finally, we're also going to be conducting a household food waste composition analysis project to get a better understanding of the types of food waste that people are throwing into their household bins. And then finally, to help reduce food waste, we would like to see the food and beverage industry and retailers and food services to sign up to the Food Waste Charter and to use the standard measurement tools that are there to quantify your food waste consistently and put in place actions to reduce your food waste and to save yourselves money. And then for householders, which includes all of us, I would encourage you to check out our Stop Food Waste website, because that has everyday actions to help you reduce your food waste and, again, save money. Because remembering that stopping food waste is the climate action you can do 3 times a day. So I just want to say thank you. Our latest food waste statistics are published on our website. I guess if you have any questions for me, like statistical questions, my email address is there. And if you have food waste prevention queries, you can address them to my colleague, Odile. Okay, thank you.